they were basically paying the firm that they were at essentially $40,000 a month just to stay there, right? So even though they said they weren't ready to make a decision, our response was, oh, you've made a decision. Your decision was to stay.
Welcome to Advisor Talk with Frank LaRosa. Brought to you by Elite Consulting Partners, it's the only podcast offering unfiltered guidance and direct advice for all things concerning financial advisors, RIAs, and the practitioners in the wealth management business. Learn more and subscribe today at eliteconsultingpartners.com/podcast. And now, here's your host, Frank LaRosa.
Hey everybody, welcome to Advisor Talk with Frank LaRosa. I am your host, Frank LaRosa, and I'm joined, as always, by my lovely co-host, Stacey. Frank, how are you?
Hello, happy to be back.
That's good. I almost said Vanna White for a second.
Then I have to go like this.
Anyway, thanks for joining us. If you're not watching us on YouTube, you should check us out on YouTube. You'll understand why I'm in a blue pullover right now, because I'm freezing.
We got the
in
memo.
Here. It's freezing in here.
Yeah.
This is a blue background, blue shirts. Anyway, it's one of those days. So thanks for joining us. Today we're going to talk about, the title of this is Breaking the Golden Handcuffs, but I crossed out the word golden and just put handcuffs because some of them aren't so golden.
Right, they're not so pretty in tone, in color.
Right, exactly.
They're just handcuffs.
Right, so
captivity.
Right, so really it's about breaking the handcuffs and why advisors stay too long at firms that they're at, and we see this all the time, and sometimes we're perplexed because advisors admittedly don't like the firm that they're at and don't want to leave, which is odd.
Yeah, well, they, we sometimes get asked, who are your biggest competitors in the industry? And I think that's really where this conversation began from. Really, our biggest competitors is complacency and fear.
Yeah.
So because the path of least resistance, and advisors, they don't know what they don't know. And so they just, stay the course.
And it doesn't mean it's the right path, right?
Right.
So, but there are some things, when you look at golden handcuffs, deferred comp is one of them. And I think it's interesting that, so you have deferred comps, bonuses in general, non-competes is not really a golden handcuff. It's more of a handcuff, right? So, but non-competes, the non-solicits, because the non-competes don't really hold too much water anymore, but non-solicits do, and now some of the firms, if you're at an RIA, there's these non-acceptance clauses, right? So
right, those seem pretty severe.
Those are pretty severe, right? So you got to be worried about those. Firm equity, so you're given firm equity, and once you're sort of given firm equity, maybe you sold part of your practice, which is a whole other issue, right? Sometimes advisors are reluctant to leave because they have equity in the firm, even though they're not growing the way they're supposed to. They have equity in the firm, and there's a hope and a dream that maybe one day it's going to, go public or whatever. And then retirement packages is also another handcuff, right? And both it's, if you're an advisor selling, so you have your retirement package set up, but then there are, if you're an advisor that's buying firms, right? So if you're sort of participating in the Alpha program or the CTP program, whatever firm, it doesn't matter the firm, all the firms have some type of program where you can buy practices. And when you start doing that, it makes it hard for you to leave while you have those programs. Now, some of them, you write the check back to the firm and you can bring those clients with you. And so, but you still have to get the money to do that. And so it's a lot of the advisors struggle with some of those things, right? And I always look at the deferred comp one. This one is interesting to me because, and again, I'll just use, I'm not picking on any firms here. Every firm has their pluses and minuses. I'm just using this as an example for what I see out in the marketplace, right? So you have a firm like Merrill Lynch, right? And they take a percentage of the revenue, they put it into the deferred comp plan. It's like an 8-year deferred comp plan. And, as an advisor, if you know you're going to leave the firm, every month that you're there, that money is going into the deferred comp plan 8 years out, and you know for sure you're not going to be there for 8 years, you're basically just, I'll use a different term, but you're basically just throwing out that money, right?
Yeah, it's just a retention strategy, because we've seen instances where something like deferred comp can actually be made up for in other ways. It might take a little bit longer, whether it's staying at another firm that offers deferred comp, or going into the independent space with higher payouts and the aggressive compensation that we're seeing today. There's certainly ways around it if that's something you wanted to achieve.
Yeah, you have to know the numbers, because,
right,
like Stacey's saying, there are ways around accomplishing what you're gonna. If you're gonna lose that deferred comp, well, you're losing it, but
today.
You're yeah, like it's 8 years out, right? So if you take the difference between what you're going to make, the increase in difference if you're going to go independent, and how much more money you're going to make by going independent over that same 8-year period of time, I would put pen to paper most of the time to say that you're ahead of the game, even if you left that money on the table, because you're going to make so much more money over the same period of time. And so the way you break that golden handcuff is you just do the math, right? We work with all different firms, different advisors, and we help them run pro forma models and go through all these things so that you truly understand what the numbers are. Like, what are you really leaving on the table, and what are you not leaving on the table?
And so kind of what you're saying is why, if you're making a transition, you should work with unbiased consultants like us to help you see the math short term and long term.
Yeah, we do a pro forma model for clients, and it has nothing to do with the qualitative aspects of the firms that we're doing the models with. So we might model a W-2, like stay versus go. So we have a stay at the firm that you're at versus go to the new firm, and what those economics are, right? Or independent versus W-2. What are the differences there? Or we can analyze 4 different firms with 4 different offers with 4 different economic components, right? Meaning that they all have 4 different methodologies on how they do their payouts. And so we do that stuff because it's totally, I'll say, unbiased in that it's just math.
Right.
Right?
We're just running the numbers in scenarios of W-2 versus 1099, staying versus going, not really firm specific, although we can do that, and we have done that ultimately.
Well,
but
it's firm. It can be firm specific in terms of the way those firms pay their advisors.
Right, the way they structure it.
But we're not getting into in that process who's got the better technology, who's got better compliance,
better pricing.
That is an economic financial discussion that we run that really opens the eyes of our clients to that part of the decision-making tree, right? And the reason why we do that sometimes is because we want them to, many times, if you're comparing one independent firm to another independent firm, a lot of times the numbers become they're very close, right? Meaning that they're within a foot or two of the hole in golfing terms,
and
right?
a few basis points.
Right. And the reason why we do that is because we want them to move off of the financial conversation with the understanding that, listen, plus or minus a point or two, they're both going to be the same, right? And then we move to the qualitative side of that conversation. And that helps us move that advisor through the process a little bit better and sort of helps them break the golden handcuffs that they think that they have. It's almost like do you ever see the analogy like where they train an elephant in the circus? Right, where they train elephants over the years, where they, as a baby elephant, they will put a leg like a chain on them on their leg, right? But over time, the elephant gets so used to that chain being on their leg that over time they can actually take the chain off, and the elephant doesn't realize it. It acts like they still have the chain on. That's very much
they're so
conditioned
right.
to believe that they still have the chain on, so they can't really go far. That is basically what's happened. I just thought about this. What a profound thing. That's basically what's happened in our financial services industry in the wirehouse space, in the W-2 space. Advisors have been trained and conditioned that, oh, we're going to take all this money, we're going to throw it into deferred comp, and you're never going to get it back. And if you leave, you're going to lose all this money. That might be partially true in that you're going to lose all that money, but you're going to make it up 5 to 6 to 7 times if you go independent.
Right, and it's so funny because we often hear, states have been told that, if I go independent, it's not going to really be more than a, 15 or 20% increase when all things considered. And the answer is we've run those numbers a million ways to Sunday. That's really just not true, but that's what you've been told your entire career, pretty much.
Right, and it's interesting. What I found out recently is that there's always that expression like they either don't know, or they know and they're not telling you, right? And which one's worse? And so what I have found is a lot of candidly, some of them are friends of mine that are in the W-2 space and they're managers and they're in that world, and that's the only world they've been in. They don't even understand, and don't even believe it. They don't believe the numbers. Right, many of the W-2 advisors that we talk to don't believe the numbers are as good as they are, which is mind blowing.
Yeah, and what about we worked on an opportunity in an advisor team from a wirehouse for probably 4 years. We still talk about it today. Yeah. And the advisors over time, we went through so many different firms and options, basically made the decision to not make a decision.
Right.
But then I think what really tipped the scale is when we started going through the numbers of what it was costing them to decide not to decide.
It was $40,000 a month.
It was $40,000 a month. Right. And I feel like once we got to that point of them saying, oh my gosh, then it was,
what?
Where do you think I should go? I'm like, well, we've already looked at 12 firms, so let's start over again.
Right. So the cost of staying for this particular team was $40,000 a month, meaning this is what they were making at the firm that they are at. If they went to any of the number of firms that we were talking to them about, conservatively, they would have seen a pickup on a monthly basis of about $40,000. It was a pretty decent sized team.
It's real money.
Right. That's real money. So they were basically paying the firm that they were at essentially $40,000 a month just to stay there, right? So even though they said they weren't ready to make a decision, our response was, oh, you've made a decision. Your decision was to stay.
Was to not make a decision.
And to cost you $40,000 a month, right? And so that complacency, which is part of the reason why we talk about the psychological traps that people fall into, one of them is complacency, right? Is that you just don't want to go through the motion. One of the other, I'll call it I don't know if it's a psychological trap, but it's not having the knowledge. They say knowledge is power. So not having the knowledge to understand what's available to you. You don't know what you don't know. And one of the things that we do exceptionally well here is educate our clients. I was on a call with a guy yesterday, and he was at a wirehouse firm, and he's considering going independent. And one of the firms that he wants to go to is more of a franchise model, right? And he likes the firm, and he wants to go to this firm. And there's some things that he's trying to figure out. And the better solution for him is to really tuck underneath this larger enterprise. And he doesn't understand the benefits that when you tuck underneath a larger enterprise, because he was sort of making this about the money. And so I said, well, if you go into this larger enterprise, not only are you get a higher payout, but the admin fee, the global admin fee, it's Ameriprise, is a lot lower working with this large producer versus if you went and took down your own franchise.
Right, because you're leveraging the economies of scale, better price, enterprise
size
pricing,
and scale, right? And I said, look, as long as if you can get over the ego component of not having your name on the sign, right, but making more money, wouldn't that be more important to you? And he basically paused for a second because I knew my audience. And he said, yeah, well, I can't pay my mortgage with this name on the door. I said, exactly. And so I said, what's the downside of you having a conversation with the principal of this large organization to learn about what it could mean to you, right? And, I had to be a little more forceful and say to him, what do you have to lose, dude?
Right.
What do you have to lose? You're going to go through this process anyway. Why would you not talk to a firm that might be what you're looking for?
Well, it's the fear of change. It's being in the same situation for a period of time. Things are seemingly going well for the most part, but it's that next level, sort of leveling up to that next echelon of opportunity that sometimes, as weird as it sounds, can be frightening. And so complacency ends up winning.
Yeah, well, you talking about, you like, things are going well. So I had a conversation with another friend of ours, and he's at a firm and things are going well. I would say well. So if you're watching us on YouTube, I'm using air quotes, right? Going well, but not as well as they could be if he was someplace else, because he's missing out on a huge amount of opportunities. He's a dynamic leader. He has a vision of something. And he sees people around him doing all of these things and building all these organizations and really doing exceptionally well. But he's at the wrong firm to do that. He's at a really good firm, but he's at the wrong firm to do what he wants to do. And so we're trying to explain to him this issue, and that the grass is greener. The grass is greener on the other side. It's funny, LPL did a commercial about the grass is greener on the other side, right? It's not LPL, by the way. I'm just saying he doesn't necessarily understand that, because he is sort of in his tunnel vision and trying to be a good soldier to the firm that he's at. Meanwhile, they're not reciprocating by being good partners to him.
Yeah, just the path of least resistance.
Right. But it's missed opportunities. Right. These are the types of things, the consequences of staying too long in a firm where you shouldn't be there, right? Loss of growth opportunities, both organically and inorganically. I see a lot of advisors that are unhappy at the firm that they're at. Therefore, they don't grow at the pace that they should be growing at, because they're just unhappy, right? When you're unhappy, you don't work as fervently, as passionately about your business and with your clients. Maybe you work with your clients, but you're not growing the business because you're pissed off at your manager, you're pissed off at whoever else.
And it's a shame sometimes, because we do this so much in our week, is advisors will, if they're independent or when they resign to their manager, it's, oh, wait, no. Now let me give you all those things that you've been asking for all these years. Oh, so I had to do something disruptive or threaten you to have you make a change? Well, that's not really a good partnership either. So I would also be kind of cautious of some of those. We really meant to help you with that seminar, or we really meant to give you that, that centers of influence relationship.
Right.
Now after the fact,
it's
sort
after
of like too late.
Right, exactly. After now, I've found somebody else. Right. Now you're going to be nice to me, right? I think that's a big red flag too, where if they're not doing the things, it's like that expression, like character is about what you do when people aren't watching, right? So to me, leaders and managers at different offices, their character is about what they do and how they take care of you when you're not threatening to leave the firm, right? When you are being a good soldier and you are doing the things that you want them to do, are they treating you the same way, or are they just paying attention to the new shiny object that just walked in the door that they just wrote a check for $7 or $8 million for, right? But you want to go ask for a new printer and they say no, right?
Yeah, and those are some of the things maybe in more so of the captive world, or the more let's say the less independent world.
But that can happen in the independent space too. If you're part of an organization, you're working underneath somebody, right? And you're trying to build something and they're just not giving you the support that you're looking for. Again, there's lots of options. You don't need to stay there. Transferring your accounts is not as difficult as everyone thinks it is. Yes, I know it's not easy, but it's way easier than it used to be. Trust me. So anyway, I think that when you think about it, am I in this boat, right? What I like to think about is, how do you feel when you're going to the office every day? Do you get excited about going to the office? Do you get angst about going to the office? Are you frustrated with where you're at? Are you frustrated with the growth of your practice? Is your team frustrated with the services or the technology? How long it takes to open accounts and do all that stuff? Those are the things that you need to be thinking about that are slowing your business down, because you have to operate every single day as hard as you can. In my opinion, you have to come into the office every single day and win that day, because life can be really short, as we all know. Life can be really short, so you have to work as hard as you can and improve on your business every single day. And if there's days where you just feel like the firm is fighting you for no reason, then that's a sign that maybe that's not the right firm for you anymore. Maybe you've outgrown the firm. And the only way to do that to figure out whether or not that's the case or not is to explore your options.
And how many times, and we talk about this often, I feel like we've done this on other podcasts too, an advisor comes to us saying they want to wind down, maybe they're approaching their succession age, and then we take them through this process, and then, you know exactly what I'm going to say.
Yeah, I know.
And then they're 6 months into their new firm, and all of a sudden they're back to working 50.
Newfound energy.
A newfound vision or motivation, and why they love this business in the first place, but it's just really because they felt restricted, handcuffed, or just simply at the wrong firm. And oftentimes our advisor clients don't know what they don't know.
That's a real thing.
So,
like we see that
thing.
all the time.
Right.
Where advisors, you're just getting, you got kicked in the teeth for years by your compliance department. All of a sudden you move to another firm and you're super excited again and you have a newfound energy. And you start working, your energy sounds better. You sound better on the phones with your clients. You sound better with prospects. All of a sudden, surprisingly, all of a sudden you brought in $15 million in net new assets and you don't even know how, right? That's the kind of stuff that we're trying to help advisors understand. And so our message here today, just in a short little sort of fiery podcast here, is don't think that you're trapped at the firm just because you have deferred comp or you're part of a CTP program. There's ways out of those things or ways around those things, right? Not around them, but out of them. Or you have back-end bonuses. All of those things get worked into new deals. That's why the deals that are on the street right now are as aggressive as they have ever been. I've been doing this a long time. The deals are as aggressive as they've ever been, both on the W-2 side and on the independent side. I mean, some of the independent deals that we're seeing today look like W-2 deals only 2 or 3 years ago.
Right.
That's how
that probably 3 times in the last week.
That's how it's almost mind-boggling.
Yeah.
And so we're very passionate about getting advisors to open their eyes a little bit, pick their heads up out of the sand, and they're in denial about how bad their firm is, and take a look around and see what's out there. You'd be surprised. You don't know what you don't know. Let us help you identify what might be out there. Look, we might also identify that, there are some things you don't like about your firm, but overall, your firm's pretty good.
Yeah. And maybe we go through this process and we convince you that you really are at the best place.
Right.
But if you don't go through this exercise,
you won't really know.
You'll never realize.
And that could change your attitude.
Right.
That in itself can change your attitude about the firm that you're at, right? So, okay, I got to deal with this, and other thing. But you know what? It's pretty good considering. So let me stop complaining. Let me stop crying like a baby about whatever, and just get back to work, right?
How do you really feel?
So I did a video at my gym the other day, and it said, "No one cares, work harder," right? Basically, figure out what's wrong, and then move on. Look, we can help you in other areas, and that's why we don't really mind if we talk to you and realize you're at the great firm. Let's figure out other ways to work with you and go from there. So. Don't get stuck with just because you think you have golden handcuffs, because you don't. No one really does. There's always a way to find a solution for what you're looking for. So one of those ways is to give Stacey a call, and she can help you out, which is what?
What's my number? Oh, it's 856-816-6322 or Stacey at eliteconsultingpartners.com. Don't forget the E, or
Frank at eliteconsultingpartners.com. You can also give me a call at 856-316-4651, and you can also DM me directly on LinkedIn or my Instagram account, which is franklarosa.elite. I think we're quickly approaching 270,000 Instagram followers, so go check it out, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening to Advisor Talk with Frank LaRosa. If you're looking for more advice or solutions on any topics in the financial services industry, or you just want to subscribe to our podcast, head on over to eliteconsultingpartners.com/podcasts.